Women at NJPAC. It's our annual meeting, and we are online. And I'd like to start with the leading lady panel, Reframing Newark through the Arts. And my name is Faith Taylor. I'm the president of the Women at NJPAC. I have the pleasure of introducing Aisha Glover, and she is one of our trustees. We're very blessed to have you. But Aisha is the vice president of urban innovation at Audible. And previously, she served as the president and CEO of the Newark Alliance and Invest Newark, where she oversaw innovative and community programs, working with our mayor, Roz Baraka. So Audible recently launched the Newark Artists Collaboration to produce large-scale installation and public artworks, which is phenomenal. My daughter's an artist, so I'm so happy that you're, bringing forward visual arts as well, which really is representative of the community. So you're going to hear more about this as she introduces to you our panelists and discuss reframing Newark through the arts. Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you, Faye. Good morning, ladies. Thank you. This is my first in-person, indoor event, so I was hoping to feel some love. I actually came to my first indoor show here as well, so NJPAC is definitely home. We have all drank the Kool-Aid many years ago in my family, and we love the arts. We love live theater and live music, so it was a no-brainer to join the board. Really a privilege to be serving with women at NJPAC. Thank you for continuing to have me, even though my schedule is crazy. And so excited to be able to moderate this panel today. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our panelists. You have full bios on your gorgeous tables. I'm feeling all spring-like here. Regina Barboza, Interim Executive Director of Newark Arts. Woo. Rebecca Jampol, the co-director of Project for Empty Space, who's also working as an advisor to us on the Newark Artist Collaboration. Yemi Gomez Castillo, a multidisciplinary artist raised in Newark and the co-founder of I'm Visible, a collective of Newark-based artists who amplify immigrant and non-documented voices. Yemi. And also is working with us on the Newark Artist Collaboration. Hopefully I don't say that too much this morning. And Laura Bonus-Palmer, the co-owner and curator of Aquaba Gallery right here in Newark. So again, just really, really honored to be joining all you leading ladies this morning. So Newark has a very rich arts history, so I don't want too much, my lens of economic development. I don't want us to sound too much like we're just focused on the future and as if we're not building upon a really rich history. Oftentimes we do that, right? We assume that we were the first ones here, we launched this, we started that. When in actuality, we're really building upon a legacy that the city has. But we also know that arts can empower revitalization. So we'll get into that a little bit in the discussion as well, both as an industry and as individual artists. So sometimes we talk about the arts, and then we forget about the artists that really make up the arts. And then lastly, we'll hit on arts as an expression for really what's occurring around us and in many aspects to us, right? So I'm hoping we have an engaging discussion this morning. We will also be taking questions, of course. Some of you submitted questions in advance. So we will kick it off. So as I said, I have a really strong interest in the economic trajectory of the city of Newark. And I'm definitely interested in hearing from each of you about how supporting the arts provides direct economic benefits to Newark and what more can be done. So maybe appropriate to start with Laura, given the fact that you have a commercial gallery here in the city.
Hi,
My name is Laura Bonus Palmer. In terms of when I look at the impact of the arts in economic development, I think there is a direct impact of the arts in economic development in any city. One of the things I like to say is that people love living in a city where arts play an important role. In fact, no one wants to live in a place that's not filled with arts and culture. One of the draws to any city for people to live is the impact of arts and culture in that city. If the city is lacking arts and culture, people are not really interested in being in that area or living in that area. So when I look at Newark in terms of the impact of arts and culture in Newark, I see that impact. I think about it on the level of me, even of my husband and I opening up a Quaba Gallery, and I'm looking at the impact of that in our community. We are on a street where I think prior to us even bringing a gallery there was no interest in people from outside the area even coming into that area. And now all of a sudden, every event we have, we're estimating anywhere between 150 people attending, sometimes to close to 400 people attending. And it's people from all over Newark. I have a large number of people coming in from New York City, everywhere from Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, coming into our events. I get phone calls from people calling saying, hey, what's the closest bus to the gallery? And people are coming into our events. So when I think about the impact of the arts in our community, it plays an extremely important role. People want to live there, people want to do activities there, and when you have that going on, you're having economics coming into the city. And so I think you can't build a city without having arts be a part of it as well.
Amen to that. Anyone else want to, Regina?
Yeah, so we do have data that supports that the arts is really an economic engine. And to Laura's point, it makes for a vibrant city. Pre-COVID, in terms of the nonprofit arts sector, it generated something like $178 million annually. It supported 5,000 workers. We don't have updated information to know where that is now, but it is a true driver. And I dare say when we do business engagement, we do put the arts at the forefront of any business attraction that we're trying to do anytime we're trying to attract more residents. And I think it's good for residents to plug into how much of an arts city Newark is.
Absolutely, and I think just to echo that, oftentimes we know the areas that really undergo the greatest revitalization start with artists, right? And so how do you maintain that as well? The character, the dynamism that helps shape those neighborhoods, but also retains artists and doesn't displace them. Rebecca, did you want to add, or can we?
Sure. Is this working? Okay, great. I guess I would love to address the Four Corners Public Arts Project when we speak about economic catalyzing, areas through the arts. So in addition to being the co-director of Project for Empty Space, I'm also the project manager for Four Corners Public Arts, which some of you may know about. It was initiated in 2019 by a cohort of local nonprofits and developers, which includes Newark Arts, who is our managing and fiscal partner, but also RBH Group, Paramount Assets, Invest Newark, Newark Downtown District, and the City of Newark. And so in 2019, we looked at 2 streets in the downtown district that were under-maintained. They were not very walkable, underlit, and just in general really needed to be addressed. And so we pulled together, I believe, 18 murals that addressed Treat Place and Beaver Street in downtown Newark. And so just with that surge of activity on those streets, not only creating art in those streets, but creating art with local artists and really being attentive to what themes and topics were of interest to our local community, we create these incredible portals for arts and for gathering. And over the last couple years, we've seen Treat Place become this incredible space to gather. It's really transformed. Nobody would even really walk down that street some years ago, and now it's the back end of Broad Street, but it greets Teachers Village. It is the home to many local businesses. Source of Knowledge opened up their back doors into Treat Place, and now they have activations there. There's a whole new slew of businesses that are on Williams Street, and we see development happening all around it. It also has become this destination space to view art, but also to just be captured on. Many of you are familiar with the Newark is for Artists mural. That was one of the first groups of murals that happened there, and it graced the front page of the New York Times, and people across the nation know that Newark is not only for artists, but Newark is a place to go see art. So I think that model itself, that's just a testament to how arts can, it beautifies an area, but it literally changes it, and it becomes a space where people want to be, and for businesses to thrive, and for families to want to live in.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that there were businesses already there, right? So it's that balance of attraction that you were talking about, Regina, but also how do you activate an area that's really not getting foot traffic for the benefit of the residents and the businesses that are already there. So thank you for sharing that. Yami, I want to jump to you just in terms of how we can use art as a vehicle for social change. As a Rutgers professor and founder of Newark Arts Justice, Salamisha Tillett said, "Newark has long been the lodestar for artists who are committed to justice. We don't have to invent anything new here. We just remember who we've always been." Can you talk a little bit about that from a social change perspective?
Absolutely. I did want to add one thing to the last topic, just in terms of what we need, and I think it really does connect perfectly. I wanted to say that we should continue encouraging young artists towards the path of being who they are as artists and encouraging entrepreneurship. And I think that there's already a lot of that going on in Newark, but amplifying that just allows our youth to see themselves and to see a career in the arts. For myself, I grew up sort of imagining what this life would look like for me, and even being up here is a bit surreal because I didn't imagine that this is what it could look like, right? That there are pathways even within activism and still being a musician and an artist and someone who wants to express themselves creatively. And so art and social justice, really what it does, it doesn't, I loved the title of this, reimagining, because it's about telling the stories that are already there and seeing how we can give a mic and give a platform to the people of these cities, of our city, of marginalized and ostracized communities that need to be heard, that have something to say, that continue to do this work at grassroots, local levels, but that sometimes just don't have the platform to reach the people that need to hear it, that allow them to continue that work, that support them. It's a transformative practice, really, to be able to express yourself and to tell your story and to be honest of everything that you faced. For me, I've been undocumented most of my life, and I'm currently documented. And for all that time, thank you for the clap. Right? I mean, I'm happy about it too. But for all that time, I knew that this is what I wanted to do, but I didn't fully know how I could do it. And that's really how our organization, I'm Visible, began, is because we understood that through going through the high school and just education process myself, that there wasn't a lot of support there for artists, and especially if you're an undocumented or immigrant artist, or just someone who is undocumented and immigrant and wants to have a career. And we created workshops where we use art as a tool to heal, right, from the migration trauma, but also to then re-envision yourself as the powerful person that you are, to take the story that perhaps disabled your abilities in some way, right? Not physically, but mentally, your spirit, right? And then to empower them and to say, no, you can actually build these careers for yourself. You can just be whoever it is that you are. And that, I think, is a true, it's a true, not even testament, but it's like a walking testament, a living, breathing testament of how the arts and expressing yourself, and then also supporting and encouraging that really and truly empowers people. And we saw that in so many of the workshops that we had with high school students from Behringer, who had just migrated 2 or 3 years ago, and perhaps didn't think that there was anything beyond high school because college was probably not an option, and maybe just working for themselves could be a path, but there's so much more there. So I mean, there's so much that I could keep going on and on, but that's really the tip of the iceberg.
No, I love it, and I was excited to participate in the workshop you held about a month ago on an installation that she'll be doing on Broad Street right before you get to 280 on code glitching. And so we all know what code switching is, but code glitching, really almost like when there's a glitch in the matrix, when English is your second language, or there's certain things that just don't quite translate well. And it was such an empowering and eye-opening discussion, and hearing firsthand on people's experiences. And I'm just excited to see some of that come to life. And you too will catch it through the Newark Artists Collaboration.
Thank you, Audible.
So we'll move back to Rebecca for a quick second. I talked a little bit about Newark's storied past in the opening remarks, from its musical history and artistic activism, kind of building off of what Yemi was just talking about, to Black cultural icons and the jazz scene. So as we think about Newark's future, how do we build on the foundation of Newark's artistic and social justice past? I know you work with so many different artists across the city, and so you see this come to life in different ways.
This question has so much responsibility attached to it. I mean, Newark just has such a rich history of arts and culture and social activism. I mean, our leadership is a direct example of just, a full line of social activists that have impacted many of our work, and the reason why I love living in this city too, just having somebody represent our city that has always been for the people and for the stories of the people. That's so amazing. But I guess I'm going to speak to this directly as a public art curator, and our responsibility as social practitioners and public artists and people organizing in public space. We are making art in neighborhoods where people live, in spaces that people value, and where their children go to school, and that we walk through every day. When you're making art in public space, you have to be conscious of the people that live there, and they need to be your collaborators. You cannot make art in public space on your own. It's just not a real thing. And so in the work that I've done in every space that I'm working in, Project for Empty Space, Four Corners Public Arts, with Newark Arts, with the Newark Artists Collaboration, we emphasize community engagement to the point of which it's mandated. You need to investigate the spaces that you're working in, and you need to understand the history of these spaces and work with people that are living and take care of these spaces daily to create works that are truly meaningful to everybody. And so Treat Place, for example, it's just kind of like this rolling storytelling space where artists retell history in the way that they want to see it represented, where they give visibility to people that haven't been visible in the past. There's this incredible piece by Noel called To Be Seen, where she takes images that were only 3 inches tall that she sought for across the United States, that were taken of Black women that were photographed in studios close to Treat Place, and those images were never supposed to be more than 3 inches tall, and now they live 4 or 5 feet tall. So those are the stories that are important to tell. With the Newark Artists Collaboration, Noel just put up this incredible installation in the former Westinghouse lot, and it's called Monumental Sites, and she selects specific areas around the neighborhood that are crucial to telling the stories of Black history in Newark, and she blew them up 8 by 12 foot tall, and you can just walk down and see these incredible sites. There'll be a map attached to them shortly with like histories of each one of these sites. So it is our responsibility as people working in public space to tell these, to research, to confide in others, to collaborate, to create spaces for community to come together and to inform this work. And that is when it's the most impactful and the most powerful.
Rebecca, you referenced the New York Times article earlier that ran last summer. It was a very positive piece about how Newark artists pivoted to respond to the pandemic. So Regina, I want to ask you to talk to us a little bit about the artist community here in Newark and whether you feel it's important for the broader world to see Newark as an arts-rich history. I know we won like top, arts city, top 10 or something. I don't always pay attention to rankings, but when it makes Newark look good, I do pay attention. The seventh most arts vibrant city in the country, something like that. But yeah, how important do you think that is for the broader world to see and recognize Newark in that way?
I think it's crucially important for the world to see Newark as it really is, as this rich art city that has been so for not just 10 years, but for decades. And so when you think about the fact that Newark at one point had more jazz clubs than Manhattan, which I still can't kind of wrap my head around. You're talking about Noel's piece. I would like to see a holograph or something that shows where all those clubs were so that we can get a sense of space. Some of that, was around certainly Lincoln Park. It's also important for residents here to understand how rich this city is as an art city. And I find that new artists can come in from wherever, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Iowa, and find a place here very quickly. Like I talk to artists all the time who, oh yeah, I moved here last summer. Really? I moved here, 2 summers ago. And they feel really embraced and supported, and there are now resources to help. I've not seen a mix like this in other areas. I don't think you see it quite in Brooklyn or, in some of these larger spaces. I don't see it in cities that are of comparable size. I think it's an amazing thing, and part of that has to do with having an arts mayor, Mayor Baraka, and a long legacy of rich arts. So, from Sarah Vaughan to Whitney to, we can go on, Savion to Maurice Chestnut, and then, writers, Mary Baraka, the Black Arts Movement, Philip Roth. I mean, it's just where does it end? It doesn't. And so we need to reclaim that and celebrate it worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else want to add to that? Okay, y'all on cue now. Any other additions there? No? It does speak to resources, though, as well, right? And so I do want to ask just, last year during the pandemic and even this year, the city, under Mayor Baraka's leadership, announced several rounds of arts funding, and Director Shakur has really led some of the most critical programs and initiatives supporting artists and the arts. Everyone on this stage believes that more resources should be dedicated to the arts in general. But what would that mean? What would additional funding actually enable in Newark? So maybe I'll just start with you on that, Laura.
I think when I think about arts in the city, I think one of the most important things we need to remember is the artist. That if an artist is in a position where they're unable to make a sustainable living doing what they do, then they can't do what they do. They can't impact what we're doing. They can't impact the city. They simply can't function. And I think far too often in a lot of this, we want to appreciate the arts, but at the same time, we don't remember that in order for us to appreciate the arts, we have to remember the artists in all of this. And if they're unable to make a sustainable living doing what they do, then they're unable to be able to do what they do. So I think when I think about what's important in all of this, I think we have to remember that if we want to be able to appreciate the arts, if we want to be able to benefit from the arts, we have to also be equally mindful that the artists need to be able to live. They need to be able to make a sustainable living doing what they do. It can't simply be that they go out and they produce these beautiful works that we all enjoy and we all appreciate, and yet still they're in a position where they're thinking about, where's the next meal coming from? Where am I going to live? How am I going to live? I think it's very, very important that we remember that they have to make a sustainable living doing what they do. I mean, at the gallery, we are now in a position where we're selling work for artists. And just to be able to hear an artist say, you know, that I can actually make something out of a piece that I created, and the importance of that, we just have to continue to always be mindful that the way you support the arts is really you support the artists as well.
Right. That is right. Thank you.
May I add to that?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So, yeah, you were talking about funding. So I think you were talking about the Creative Catalyst Fund. Newark Arts was tasked with doing the city's first cultural plan, citywide cultural plan, and it was 18 months of community engagement. And the main findings of those was that for Newark's arts community and sector to thrive, there are three things that are needed: funding, space, and coordination. And so from that, I think that helped to influence some of, you know, for Director Fayemi Shakur to be appointed to do a lot of this work, for the mayor to announce simultaneously roughly $800,000 a year to go to arts and small artists and small arts organizations. And Newark Arts has been the fiscal sponsor for that for the last 2 years. So that's 1.6 million basically that has gone to the arts community. And I would say the one-word answer to your question in terms of what could we do with more funding and resources is sustainability, just what Laura was saying. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Rebecca, did you want to add something, or Yemi?
Yeah, I guess I could just speak a little bit to the idea of mutual investment, because that's something that I think is so important. And you know, when talking about communities that are like really catalyzed through the arts and are really focused and centered around the arts, I think we forget that. I've had the pleasure of working with so many developers and organizations over the last 5 years, especially through the public arts. And these are to address like areas in Newark that really need like breath of life. They need to be maintained. They need to be acknowledged. But we have to remember, once the arts are there, we cannot forget the artists. Once these spaces become destinations for others and businesses move in, and those that have brought us on to make these spaces more attractive and more livable and more exciting, to not push us out, because we have invested into this space just as much as you have. We have made these spaces destinations. We've made these spaces exciting, and they're full of life and narratives that represent this city and garnish the city nationwide, if not worldwide, press. And so once these spaces, you know, have new high-rises in with very expensive apartments, not to push us out, because we're the ones that brought this here. Of course, this is collaboration, you know, that made it happen. But we have to remember that there's a mutual investment. It might not be in dollars, but we have given all of us to these spaces. And, you know, I've seen this happen like 20 years ago when there was no Prudential Center. When I moved here as a student, I don't know if I've quite been here for 20 years, it's like 17 or something like that. And I'm aging myself, but it's okay. But when I moved here as a student and I lived on Halsey Street, I've seen this transformation happen around me, and I've seen people be displaced. I myself had to move out of downtown Newark. so that I could have a place that my child, could have her own bedroom in. So we have to remember, as we are building up the downtown, to not lose track or lose sight of those that have invested in these spaces with us. So that's all I wanted to say. Mutual investment. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, it kind of brings me to the next question around creative placemaking. So we've launched at Audible a pretty large-scale public art installation that we're going to continue and expand, but it's not in a silo. We're also looking at streetscape improvements and things that we can do outside of our four walls, right? Like, what can we do to really help accelerate the growth and development and placemaking of our neighborhood? And so would love to hear from any of you, building off of what you were just saying, Rebecca, or other points that folks wanted to make, on how important creative placemaking is as a part of the work that you're doing. So yeah, really how we leverage arts to really create a sense of community. And I'm always hesitant to use create because there's already community here, but really to strengthen and further advance it. So any takers?
Yeah,
Jamie?
I'll take that one. So to also the point of like mutual investment, I think that wait, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? It like went blank. It came in
No
the ear.
problem.
Like,
It's really around creative placemaking, right? Like how you define space, how you
Right.
use and leverage the arts to create a sense of community or to advance the community that's already there.
Absolutely. Right. So again, to mutual investment, I think that when we invest in artists and in the communities that they naturally build around the sort of work that they're doing, we have to remember that it's also interconnected to other processes going already on community, right? And to my work with I'm Visible and our activism, it's almost like a chain reaction. When funding comes our way, we create spaces to then reciprocate it and reciprocate that funding to other artists or to other organizers and other people who need it, who are doing this necessary and essential work. And so creative placemaking, to then sort of give it off to Rebecca, when we came into the Four Corners project and we were thinking about what we wanted to do, we envisioned this monumental mural for undocumented Newarkers. And again, it's not about creating a community because we're already there. It's just really bringing us together and celebrating us. And so with this sort of creative placemaking, what then happens is we don't just say, okay, well, we're the voice of all of these community members. And absolutely not. We invite people and we ask them what you want to see, what do you want to say, and how can then we make that happen for you? So it really just continues to strengthen what's already there. And as we continue to expand as a city, we need to, in order to not, like Rebecca said, not be pushed out, really just solidify who we have here and invite them into these spaces so that then we create this sort of cycle of giving back to each other and then receiving and then inviting, right? So that's sort of the work that we've been doing with I'm Visible, but I think the Four Corners project has been magnificent and is not done yet, at least for I'm Visible. We still have a lot of free posters to give out with resources for the undocumented and immigrant community, so please let me know if you need some of those.
So in terms of creative placemaking, Newark Arts is the fiscal sponsor for what's called the Lincoln Park Alliance. And that's a partnership between Newark Arts, Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, and Newark Symphony Hall. And that's looking at the southern end of downtown Newark and doing creative placemaking there that is real, where it's like reclaiming what once was the Black cultural hub of the city with, as I mentioned earlier, the jazz clubs. There are like 40 landmark buildings in that area only, and probably more than 80% of those are owned by people who don't live there. And so together, trying to reimagine, you talk about streetscapes and beautification. There's a massive capital campaign that Newark Symphony Hall is doing to revitalize that building. And as part of that, Tanisha is looking at how you create 500 jobs around all of the things that, all of the jobs that go on in this venue. Somebody's doing sound, somebody's doing lights. All of those are career paths. And so we like to look at it as a pipeline to work. We want to see Lincoln Park Coast Cultural is doing real estate kind of training so that people know how to purchase buildings. Maybe they can come together as collectives and purchase buildings. And then you begin to have a hub. And that would be a great entryway, as you know, because you've been talking about this for years. But, a great entryway from 78 into downtown Newark. We can have it balanced, right? It can be all of this wonderful activity that's happening to the north of downtown and Broad Street, and then also to the south. And then if you get that connectivity and activation all the way down, I think it would be awesome.
The Arts and Innovation Corridor, y'all heard it here first. Go for it, Laura.
I just wanted to, in everything that we do in the city, especially with the arts, I think it's extremely important that we also remember the community. And I'm saying that because I live in the West Ward, very close to the gallery, and I hear it, I hear it all the time from people in the community. There's this notion that sometimes when a lot of things happening in Newark, there's a notion that this is not for us. This is not for us. And I hear it all the time. I see it even sometimes at the gallery. I see people peering in, looking in, and they're afraid to come in. I go out and I go, come in, come on. They're like, no, no, no. I'm like, no, come on in. This is for you. Come on in. And I think we have to remember with everything we do in the arts, we have to remember that we are a part of a community, and we have to involve the community. And we involve the community that by making them feel welcome, making them feel like this is for them, this is, they're a part of this, they're a part of this process, and just really opening our arms and making them feel that, this is their city, whatever happens in their city is for them too. So
No, I love that. And I think sometimes when you are applying a community lens, you think it's enough if you have it, but extending that to others, requiring it. I loved in the RFPs that went out for the Newark Artist Collaboration, we asked all the artists specifically, like, how do you plan on engaging the community? Spell it out. And really ranking the responses according to what that looked like. Is it a genuine outreach and engagement, or is it like, and then we'll do one workshop, or, we'll invite them to do X or Y, right? So point very well taken. So closing question, I was told to lead my last question by saying closing question. I follow directions well. And then we'll open it up for any from the audience. What can we do to best support artists? So we've said it several times, right? Start with artists, lead with artists, keep artists in mind, but specifically, what can we do to best support Newark's artists? And then somewhat related, like, what are you most excited about for Newark's arts future? I'm gonna start with you, Yami, because you look like you're deep in thought.
I am. I'm gonna start with the looking forward, because that's where you caught me. Well, for one, I really look forward to just seeing more artists flourish in Newark, and I imagine a vibrant future where our city is just, filled with more murals and gardens and parks and, these connection points between the South and the North and the East and the West Ward, and I think that's what I'm really looking forward to, seeing the ways in which artists continue to be supported and that they really do feel that they are necessary, that they are wanted in our city as well. And I think how to best support artists. It's a great question. There are so many ways. I could drop so many websites where you can just, hit their cash apps. But I think that, there are multiple ways, right? One, showing up is one of the best things that you can do. It's easy. It's free. whenever there's a show, whenever there's an event, you know, the thought and the meticulous planning that goes into every arts organized event is unbelievable, and there is a team behind every single one that has taken time, usually out of their day, for, you know, for no payment at all, because they love it, because they know that it will in the long run benefit all of us. So I think that, for one, showing up is a great way to start, and again, just continuing to encourage companies or corporations like Audible to build pathways within the city that support artists, that give them a voice, and that reach out to them to incorporate what they're doing, their work, whether it's historical, whether it's, you know, music or visual. There are so many ways that art continues to lift our spirits. Without art or without expression, I don't think that the world would run in the way that it does. Right? And so we need more of that, because now more than ever, I mean, always ever, but right now, we need messages that are crucial, that are critical, that are provocative. It makes me think about the billboard that Invisible just created with Breakout. One of our messages is, you know, we are here to protect you. And we had a woman holding up a whip that turned into a snake. And in the very bottom, it also said, "No human being is illegal on stolen lands." Right. A very much needed message. And it was a billboard that was right on 21. And, you know, we had some interesting comments about it, but I think that it's a conversation starter, right? And we need that sort of urgency, especially in climate change, right? In climate crisis, and in so many of our intersecting issues. So supporting art not only, you know, gives artists a chance to make a living, but it also puts at the forefront the communities that are in danger. It also, like, talks about the Amazon rainforest that's currently burning, that needs a solution now. All of these things are amplified by art, by artists, by people who care and organize all of these events and pieces. So just funding that, showing up, celebrating that is one of the best ways to support it.
Show up, funding, provocative, critical conversations. Love it. Regina is chomping at the bit. Go.
Yeah, right? I think we need to start thinking of really artists as entrepreneurs. I mean, literally. And so there should be small business supports around them. I think the arts is the only sector where people are supposed to live on their passion. No, I mean, right? You eat off your passion. Oh, come do a wall here because you're passionate about your art, right? I'm sorry. No, you know why I'm looking.
It's the same.
But
yeah,
and so if we could just start there and have a philosophical shift, it's not just about passion, because nobody can eat passion. Nobody can send their kids to school on passion, per se. So
just to piggyback on that, when I think about an artist's career, it seems like artists are the only one that's expected to kind of live on passion. You know, we pay our teachers, we pay our doctors, we pay people in many other professions, but when it comes to an artist, there's this expectation that somehow they're supposed to really live on their passion, and that's impossible. When I think about just in my arena, how do you support an artist? You support an artist by financial support, and financial support meaning you pay them. You pay them for their work. If they're creating, if they're doing visual work, you pay them for their work. If they're dancing, you pay them for their work. That's how you support an artist, because they cannot support themselves on passion. They cannot. And, you know, you look at other professions where people are passionate about what they do. You're passionate about being a doctor. You're passionate about being a lawyer. But the expectation is that they're going to be paid as a doctor and they're going to be paid as a lawyer. But when we look at an artist, we say, well, you're passionate about what you do. You should be able to live on your passion. That is absolutely not acceptable. It's not acceptable. You support artists. I'm just going to call it what it is. You support artists by financially supporting them. They have to be able to make a living. They have to be able to make a living. And you support them by financially supporting them by going out there, buying their work, paying for it, not asking them to hang their work up in your space for free, for 6 months for free. What they're doing, they are spending money to create what they're creating. They are spending time creating what they're creating. They're investing in what they do, and yet still we're expecting that they're going to live on passion. It can't happen. It can't happen. The reality is we have to start looking at artistry as a profession. You're going to school for this. You're coming out with a school loan and you're expecting to live on your passion. It can't happen. It can't happen.
Right, all right. Show up with a check. That's where I'm going. Show up with a check. Rebecca. Rebecca's like, what else? Like, that's it.
I fangirl Laura so hard. Okay, and I said that the other day, but you're doing it, and I appreciate the work that you're doing for artists. The fact that Newark has a commercial gallery that's thriving and really putting money into Newark artists' pockets is amazing. Like, you're incredible. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Okay, so what do we need? I'm gonna just go back to the creative placemaking for 2 seconds, but because I think what we need is sustainability in our programs. So when we're thinking about activating areas with the arts or starting art programs, we shouldn't be thinking about what it's gonna do in the 1 year, like this beginning phase, but we need to think about 5, 10 years down the road, how we keep these programs going and how we continue to provide these opportunities for artists. So that has been part of my practice with working with others, with collaborating with others, thinking about sustainability, thinking about maintenance, thinking about how do we continue to do this work, not just in the beginning phases, but in the long-term phases, because that's really when you show the true commitment to the artist community. It's not when you're like, I've got this brand new building that needs art in the lobby or needs a mural. That's not true creative placemaking. That's just decorating. So, we want to see true sustainable programming that is going to continue to support us, a decade down the line. So that's what I would contribute to that. What I'm most excited about right now is the Newark Artist Collaboration. I mean, we have 2 installations up, and they are incredible. So if you've not driven through that area, there's an incredible mural that just went up by Malcolm Rowling of Yendor and Hans Lundy that talks about intergenerational knowledge and just, fills that space with joy and has completely changed the landscape of the parking lots in the area. So that is an incredible first contribution to the area. Noel's piece just went up. Irene, who is in the audience, has an installation going up on Monday and Tuesday at 53 University. And Yami, who is sitting right next to me, their work with Focus, which was done in collaboration with Focus and was informed by several meetings with the community. That work will start within the week too. So I am so excited about this project, and also because there is a sustainable mission attached to it. We have not only decided to put art in these spaces, but also thinking about how do we contribute to the current spaces that are there. So the mural that just went up on the annex of the Newark Public Library, there was a scaffold around it for 10 years. Audible helped fund the repair of that building, and the scaffold is down. So we're not just spraying perfume in the area, we are actually thinking about how we can change it long term and contribute to the spaces that are there. And there's lighting and all sorts of other things. I'm going to stop talking now, but that's what I'm most excited about.
Thank you. So we're showing up, we're cutting checks, and we're making sure that's sustainable. Absolutely. I love it. Thank you, ladies. That was an amazing, amazing discussion. I think we're going to open it up for a few questions from the audience. Some of you submitted in advance. I'm looking through them quickly. Ty Cooper, of course, asked about catalyzing, the arts as catalyzing economic development, which I feel like we covered, yes? Okay, thank you, Ty. She's like, I still have another question. And then we have one about, as you bring art into the city, how do you maintain the balance of being expressive, inspirational, but also being representative of the people and culture of the city? Yami, I'm going to give that to you, and then we'll open it up to a couple from the audience.
The key is really the community itself. That's the key. It's really just about inviting people, the people who already live there, taking real consideration of the history, the people that walked there before, the Lenape land that's there, right? It's all of those factors and including it into the work itself. It's not forgetting where you are actually creating that art. It's really intertwining it into the work itself.
Thank you. And that question was from Aretha Johnson. I don't know if you're here or you're watching online, but thank you. Chris, are we?
Hi,
Susan?
good morning. It's Susan Shear. Great to see each of you, and I want to thank each of you on panelists and congratulate you. So I have a few different, first of all, speaking about Laura and her incredible work, one of the things I've said to her that I'd love to see as an idea is, as a for-profit gallery, we fund in the city all these big corporations. They have tremendous tax benefits. For whatever Laura's taxes are in the community and how she works to create and develop community, I really believe we need to look at, providing those tax benefits to her and not having her have to afford them, so that she can put the money into the gallery in the community and continue to focus on that. So I just want to make that. Also, just two other things. I'd love to see, we talk about the American Rescue Plan, moving forward with creating a fund that's sustainable to support artists. So looking at that as a bigger idea and a bigger collective versus, again, one point at a time. And then one thing I've said before and I had started working on is a healthcare fund for artists. We have nothing in the States, really. However, the point of looking at, we have Horizon right here in our backyard. And how can we create a plan that supports artists of all genres in New Jersey and elsewhere? Now, again, I'll just say that many performing artists, musicians are part of unions, so they have funding. However, visual artists don't have any kind of union. There's no kind of support system and structure. So I look at these bigger ideas and what we need to do to move forward. So not only for Laura, but other commercial galleries and entities that create this space and build community. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Susan.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. Well, so glad to be part of this community. But thank you. I'm doing pretty good, doing great. But one of the issues, I'm around a lot of artists, and one of the issues that a lot of us have is, where do we live? And how do we rent places that we can afford, potentially buy properties? And I'm just going to say, I've helped all these artists move from place to place as they're trying to live somewhere. So does the city have any programs in place to help artists either rent places or own property?
So I guess I'll put my former city hat on now. So two things I would say. One, not to necessarily lump artists together with other affordable housing needs, but the city has pretty aggressive affordable housing development plans and requirements for new developments, particularly for any new project that's going up over a certain number of units. There's a requirement which is called inclusionary zoning. So you have to have at least 20% of those units be affordable at varying rates of the local area median income. And then the second project that I would highlight on behalf of the city is 505 Clinton, Artists Live, Work, Housing. It's been in development for several years, very close to opening, and a combination, and it's right on Clinton Ave in the South Ward, renovation of a former bank, gorgeous space, and includes both studio space, gallery space, and residential units that's specifically for artists. And so I think that's pretty cutting edge. Of course, it's one project. The idea is always to kind of lead with a pilot and then replicate. And then I'll probably just end by saying affordable housing is an issue all over the country, especially for growing and developing cities. And I believe, which is why I keep joking that I've had probably the same job over the last 6 years, even though I keep changing. I believe in my soul that Newark can and is getting it right. Because we're early enough in our development, but far enough along with the right leadership to really put policies in place that allow for protections, that are really aggressively and intentionally addressing and hopefully preventing displacement, not necessarily gentrification, right? And that's a conversation we can have on the side. But why we're so against, or people are so against gentrification, is because it causes displacement. So I think proactively putting policies and measures in place to address that will protect artists and Newark residents. I'm taking my former hat off now.
Can I comment on
Yes,
that as well?
please.
Just in terms of something Rebecca said, as well as what Susan said, I would like to see something in the city that's more artist focused, meaning housing that's sort of dedicated for artists. Because again, we can't have all of this happening. We can't have all the benefits of what an artist is doing in the city, and then they're in a position where they're forced to leave. And if you can't find a place to leave, if you can't find a place to live, you're going to be forced to leave. Whether you want to be there or not, you're going to be forced to move out. And I would love to see something in the city as we think about what we do moving forward. I would love to see something that's more artist focused, that's focused on, again, housing for artists, healthcare for artists. That's because for the most part, most artists in the city, and I think it's a problem throughout the country as well, are in situations where just being able to make a sustainable living is an issue. And if you can't make a sustainable living, then housing becomes an issue, healthcare becomes an issue, everything else becomes an issue. So I would love to see the city sort of create a program that is focused on helping artists to stay here.
Hear you loud and clear. Celeste, you had your hand up?
Okay. Hello, panel. I've had to go to the bathroom for 20 minutes, but I can't leave because I don't want to leave this discussion, okay? So I'll be dashing out of here after I make these few statements. But in terms of, I've been working in this community, in the arts community, for a very long time. And so I've thought a very long time, thank you, thanks, Mom. No, just kidding. I've thought a very, extensively about what artists need. And one of the things, in fact, I think Regina, you talked about artists thinking as entrepreneurs. That is very important. When I talk to artists, I tell all of them, if you are an artist, are consistently asked to play for free. Play and get exposure. Well, exposure doesn't pay the mortgage. Okay, so I think that's one way. You talked about it, supporting artists by writing a check. The other thing is to get artists to think of themselves as entrepreneurs. That means setting up their own infrastructure. I taught my son this, who is a musician and music producer. Know how to do your taxes, have your lawyer, know how to do your invoicing. And if we need to train our artists to do that, I think, Rebecca, you've done some of that. I know Victor Davson used to do that. Giving these hardcore skills to our artists so that they know how to survive. Yes, you need housing. Yes, you need to get paid. But yes, you need to know how to think like an entrepreneur and how to run your business. Somebody told me the other day, I have no idea how to invoice, how to get paid for anything. We need to know that. And the other thing I just wanted to say to artists about thinking out the box in terms of reaching out. You talked about, Rebecca, the businesses reaching out to the arts community. The arts community needs to reach out to the businesses, the individual artists I'm talking about. Because whenever I do something, in fact, I got something now, I'm doing a co-promotion with a local business. Hook up with a local business. Anytime I do anything, I try to see, okay, who's the local caterer I can use? Who's the local this, that, one thing, the other, restaurant, da-da-da-da-da. So these collaborations are very important. and artists need to be trained how to make those kind of connections and run their business. And that's it. And I'm going to the bathroom.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add.
Chris is saying 2 more questions. One quick plug: the city's Economic Development Corporation does provide programs and technical assistance. We actually have a lot of technical assistance providers across the city, specifically addressing arts as entrepreneurs. So do encourage artists to take advantage of that for sure. We had 2 questions over here. Ms. Ty Cooper. Oh.
Similarly, we also do creative convenings for professional development of artists, whether it's around healthcare, how you can get signed up for healthcare, or in terms of, how you market your work, how you do your CV, all that.
Yeah.
We do it in conjunction with.
Yeah, this past year during the pandemic, Newark Arts and Project for Empty Space came together through the Newark Artist Database to offer monthly free workshops to Newark artists that help with professional development. While we were all trapped at home, we thought it would be a good time to regroup and sit back and learn a little bit. So we've collaborated with, I think, over 20 professionals, many from our community, but also working, in collaboration with Creative Capital and various other groups, Prudential, to offer assistance to artists, because we find that about 75% of the time where artists find themselves in this place of vulnerability is just because they don't have the tools to move through it. So, just simple things like art law for artists, grant writing, like how to ready your grant writing toolkit. As the city has put out multiple rounds of funds, many people have never applied to a grant before. And that is, for people that run organizations, we have grant writers, right? So that's like a daunting task. So there are these incredible monthly free workshops that we've come together to do. And I think they've been pretty helpful. They've been really well attended. And but we do need more of those, absolutely. But we wanted to mention that they are out there, and if you're an artist in the audience and you want to tune into them, you can go onto Newark Arts website or to the Newark Artist Database to sign up for them.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I wanted to take the opportunity also to just say, in talking about supporting artists and also plugging myself too, I'm also a singer-songwriter, and if you would like to support my singing-songwriting career, I do have a song out that is about undocumented forbidden love. It's called Sueños Mojados, and it's all over. You can just find my name. But please take also, if you know artists, share all that information, because I went through that same journey where I had no idea how to ask for my worth and to tell people I can't sing free at your restaurant or your events, even if you are my close friend or family. Like, I need to start making a living out of this as well, right? So please support your local artists.
So I'll be really, really quick, and I'm sorry. So 2 things. Tax incentives. I'm so glad you mentioned that we have our Economic Recovery Act from the state. So there's over $1 billion worth of tax credits. A big component of that is our community benefit agreements. 5% through Aspire is dedicated for community benefit agreements. So that's something that artists should know about. So as your municipalities are applying for state tax incentives, make sure that you guys are part of the conversation. The same thing with the American Recovery Plan. The state has billions of dollars coming through this. I love the idea of setting up a dedicated fund for artists. Also, I'm just going to plug quickly the New Jersey Arts Council. We've been working with them. We're going to create an MOU just to really hyper-focus on artists. The other thing I just want to highlight, too, is that at EDA, we've really been focusing on soul props, which is a really big thing for us. We have not done that. We're doing deeper dives with artists as well. I love the idea also of doing technical assistance, but creating an umbrella, because there's so much that's happening that's kind of siloed into all these areas. But if there's a way we could support entities and really put together like a catalog of who's providing this, we will help to fund it. We just want to get the information out there. And Regina, I love the work that you guys have done with the Newark Arts Festival. We were happy to be a supporter of it this year, but I think bigger and broader is having longer conversations about creative placemaking. I've heard several times funding. We need funding. We need specifics on what that funding looks like. We need specifics on, is it going directly to support the artists? I just need more clarification on that. So as you know, this is going to be an Aisha hosting a roundtable with EDA as part of our board to have longer conversations about what support, financial support looks like long-term for sustainability. So it wasn't so much a question as we want to be a resource. EDA has not delved into the art space. This is something that we're doing intentionally. I want to make sure we have the right people at the table. But I am 100% behind this. And I know I was on my phone a lot, but I was literally texting myself like, oh my God, what about this idea? What about this idea? So these are necessary conversations. So thank you guys for being so blunt, for being so honest. And even though I work for the state, Newark really is the center of everything where it happens. And really and truly, when you think about the $23 billion that goes into our economy from arts and culture, a lot of that centers around Newark. So however we can be supportive, that's what we want to and should be doing. Passing the mic to Amina.
Last question. Thank you very much. My question is really about the children. How do we expose more of our Newark youth to arts and culture? Because it's not just about beautification and entertainment, it's also about health and healing. So as Executive Director of Newark Emergency Services for Families, we were blessed to receive a grant, thank you very much, Newark Arts, for arts therapy for our children. And we work with so many children who are in homeless shelters. And during COVID, I mean, that's what helped keep them alive. And so it's so much going on in our city, but how do we reach more of our children who are in the neighborhoods who don't have arts education in school anymore like like it was when we were in school? So do you have anything around that you can?
I can talk a little bit about that. Just real quick to make a so part of what Invisible does is we also do use, art and education as almost like an art therapy. And what I found is that collaboration with schools is key, and it's difficult because the curriculums, can be sometimes so tight that there's no space to interject. But I think with online learning right now, there's a space to find kids who are at home. There's a lot of community organizers. Like I would love to talk to you directly as well to really solidify that connection. But I think there's opportunity, especially working with a lot of after-school programs that take also on as virtual babysitters, and creating these virtual art therapy programs, or even just workshops, educating them on what is possible is a great place to start.
And I would just add to that Arts Ed Newark, which is also under Newark Arts umbrella, really advocates for in-school learning of all the arts disciplines. And they also have a national NEA grant to do trauma-informed care. And what they are doing is training teachers and youth workers to incorporate art therapy into their practices. And so that's, I think, a much needed, as you mentioned, in terms of overall well-being. Heck, all of us were turning to the arts, right, for the trauma that we went through the last couple of years, and we're still reaching because it puts us in touch with identity, culture, wellness, sense of humanity, all of that.
So two quick things I'll just add, and then I know we have to wrap because Sarah's giving me the eye. I can feel it. It's like burning right here. Plus, we're over time, so we want to be mindful of all of your time. Just two things that come to mind, especially as we've been talking about some of the interdisciplinary options within art. So because we focus so much on visual arts, I think from an Audible perspective, we actually doubled the number of internships during the pandemic when many corporations were scaling back. And so giving kids that exposure to digital arts, to the audio arts, audio production, at the high school level. Again, many corporations really focus on college as a one-off kind of summer opportunity. Our program is year-round and follows students from junior year of high school all the way through college. So as important and as instrumental as nonprofits are and a public setting, I think the private sector has a responsibility as well. And then my second point will transition nicely to Sarah, because the women at NJPAC, most of the funds that we're raising are for arts education. And so being very thoughtful about your affiliations and what you believe in and what it is that you want to support, I think is a perfect note for us to end on. So thank you all for coming this morning. And thank you all to the panelists.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know, Dorian, you have one more question, but we may try. What I want to do is I want to really honor our time and thank our audience at home.